Well, hello and welcome back. Okay, at this point, we now believe we know the root causes or cause of our problem, and we have an understanding of the environmental factors that influence our problem. Now it's time to come up with a solution. Well, actually, a number of potential solutions, if we can. Now, keep in mind that it's understandable that when faced with a problem, many people actually begin at this stage, the solution proposal stage, which is fine if the problem is extremely simple. I mean, obviously, you're not going to use these techniques to fix a flat tire. But a significant problem, a complex problem, will usually benefit from you performing the exercises that we've looked at so far in this course. So please be disciplined and remember to resist the temptation in the future to rush towards coming up with solutions until you've at least had a chance to think about the root causes and the environment of the issue, and discuss those with the people involved, the key stakeholders. And, I apologize, I know I've said this a couple of times, so I'll end that particular sermon right there. Okay, so how are we going to look for solutions? Well, obviously we're going to use another mind map template, which is designed to help you brainstorm ideas. And I'm sure most of you have heard the term brainstorming, but perhaps fewer of you will have actually participated in a formal brainstorming exercise. The brainstorming concept is a team of people is challenged to generate a number of different ideas, with an explicit approval understood by everybody that people can suggest even the most seemingly bizarre and outrageous solutions, without those solution suggestions being derided or judged, at least not immediately. A key part of brainstorming is to suspend judgment of people's input, at least at first. Now, the Maltese academic Edward de Bono focused on brainstorming in a couple of his books, and he expressly asks participants to suspend judgment of other people's ideas so that the group can be free to come up with all manner of suggestions. In the words of de Bono, instant criticism of an idea can kill that idea and makes creativity virtually impossible. Another key consideration is that whilst you can brainstorm by yourself, and obviously as you study this course, that's exactly what you're going to do, but ideally, when you have a brainstorming session to solve a problem, that's best done with other people. Groups simply produce more ideas and a wider range of ideas than one person working by themselves. Now, in the mind map template that we're going to use, we will come up with some suggested solutions for our problems, and we will deliberately not judge those suggestions, at least not immediately. If you work in a team environment, then I'm sure you're well aware that often the most vocal, outgoing people can dominate meetings. And as such, often some excellent ideas and suggestions do not get proposed by less vocal, outgoing individuals. Brainstorming avoids this by asking people to only contribute very specific input about the idea being discussed, and not allowing the discussion to wander off in different directions. So our brainstorming sessions, when they're done with others, need to be deliberately managed in order to get the best possible results. And if we're going to manage those sessions, then we need some rules to manage them by. And the way we're going to manage our brainstorming sessions is by using a simplification of Edward de Bono's 6 thinking hats model. The 6 thinking hats model proposes that an idea is analyzed in 6 distinct ways before finally being judged on its overall merits. Now, I'm sure that might sound a little confusing, and again, it's something that will become more clear when we work through the example. But 6 thinking hats is a concept in use by companies such as Siemens, Boeing, and Motorola. But saying that, you don't have to be a major multinational to get value from 6 thinking hats. As few as 2 people can also make use of this technique. But in this course, you're going to be working alone, and that's fine for our purposes right now. Now, what follows is not the full formal 6 thinking hats model in action. It's a simplification of that model, designed to work well with mind mapping and as part of this course's overall problem-solving approach. So let's run through the model using our example problem. Okay, let's open up sheet 5. Brainstorming example, and we're going to quickly work through the brainstorming that I did on several proposed solutions to our example problem. Now, before we do any work, I'd like you to look at the brainstorming questions shown here. And you'll notice we have 6 nodes, each has a different color. Now, in de Bono's 6 thinking hats problem-solving model, of which this is a simplification, you break down the problem-solving process into 6 distinct stages. And you address the problem in a very specific way during each stage. And of course, 6 hats is just a metaphor. You don't need to put a different color hat on to answer these questions. Although if you want to, feel free. So the questions are laid out in the mind map in the initial sequence you're going to address them. So we start at the top, number 1 blue, and we end at the bottom at number 6 green. So I think the quickest way to explain the process is to demonstrate it in action. Blue is the conductor, the organizer of the question answering session. So if you do this with other people, then you be the conductor. You organize people and tell them specifically what feedback that you're looking for at particular times during the process. And there's a summary here of some of the questions that you can address when you're in the blue stage or wearing the blue hat. And that's: what problem am I facing? How can I best define this problem? What's my goal? What do I seek to achieve by solving the problem? And what's the most effective method of proceeding from this position? Basically, all of the blue hat thinking we've already done in the work we've done in this course up to this point. If you hover over the node, you'll see these little lines which indicate that there's a note in that particular element. And there's just a quick summary there explaining what the blue hat, what the blue stage does, and how you're supposed to act. And hopefully these notes will be useful for you if you come back and you reuse these templates to solve problems. So let's come back to our brainstorming questions and go to white. So in the white stage, you assemble facts. You collect information, data, and statistics, and you propose logical solutions to the problem. So you go through a fact and information gathering process, then you propose some solutions. And I'll show you the solutions that my company proposed at the time. And here they are. There's 3 of them. The solution was to expand Canadian office working hours. Another solution was to open a European-based customer support operation. And the third one was kind of a proposed solution if solutions 1 or 2 weren't accepted, and that was to outsource European support. Let's look at proposed solution 1, expand Canadian office hours. Now you'll notice in this solution, there are 6 nodes. Again, the same 6 colors as the brainstorming questions. And what we're going to do is, when we move into a node, we'll come across here to the left and answer the questions and put our feedback over here on the right. And here where it says solution feedback, that's just a template for you to use. So manage the process. Well, we've already managed the process up to this point. We've collected a lot of information. We've done a lot of analysis. So I'm not going to go to too much depth on the blue stage in our proposed solutions. So let's look at white and assemble the facts. What facts do we understand about expanding our Canadian office hours? Well, staff can't be forced to change contracts and work on sociable hours. Customers only want 9 to 5 coverage on European hours. If we provide that, then there shouldn't be any resistance from customers. What threats must we allow for as we solve our problem? Staff turnover, increased costs, and increased customer unhappiness. And we looked at our strengths. We have centralized support systems and knowledge bases. Has there been an increase in competition? Yes, from newer suppliers in Europe and Asia. And what's the main area we need to improve on immediately? More support staff coverage during European hours. You'll notice that a lot of the data that I've put in the white section for this problem is the information that we assembled in the environmental analysis. The other thing I could put here would be a cost, a rough cost. So those are our facts. Now at this stage, also, when a fact is proposed, please make sure it's supported by data. If it's an assumption, that's fine. Just make sure you realize it's an assumption at this point. And the way to surface an assumption is to ask the question, how do I know this? Then we put on our red hat and we move to the red questions. Now in the red stage, this is where we deal with instinct and feelings. This is where we provide intuitive feedback on the proposed solution. And we don't have to justify that feedback. So basically, it's how do you feel about the proposed solution? What is your gut telling you about that solution? What are your feelings telling you about this choice? Based on your feelings, do you think there's a better way to go about solving this problem? And intuitively, is this the right solution to our problem? Well, for proposed solution 1, I felt quite pessimistic. I did not feel that expanding offers would solve the staff hiring and retention problems, even if it did provide some resource to work with our customers on the European working hours. And again, I had pessimistic feedback, as the cost of running that operation in Canada will be overly expensive if we are to retain staff. Okay, so that's our gut feedback. Then we move into the black stage. We put on the black hat. And this is where we judge the proposed solution. But we want to do that in an objective way. We identify any flaws, any dangers and limitations of the proposed solution. And here are the questions you can ask yourself as you do that. What is the fatal flaw in this idea? What are our drawbacks? How many ways could this fail? What are the potential risks and consequences of us doing this? And do you have the necessary resources, skills, and support to pull this off? Okay, here are our black answers. The proposal does not address our retention issues. The proposal will not be budget friendly. I'm going to skip number 3 here. And I'm going to say that number 4 says this is what we've been trying to do, and staff turnover is high as people leave and they have sufficient experience for a new employer. Number 3, I will come back to in a second. So then we move to the yellow. And in the yellow stage, we ask for optimistic feedback, where we address the judgments that were raised in the black stage with counter-arguments, contingency plans, and suggestions to mitigate them. And here are some questions. How can I best approach this problem? How can I logically and realistically make this work? What positive outcomes could result? And what are the long-term benefits? So let's look at our yellow feedback. And a suggestion was proposed that we could use a support position as an entry-level position for all new hires to enter the company via the support team. So if we hired a developer or a programmer or a systems administrator or a project manager, they would have to spend 6 months working unsociable hours in the support team. That's why this critical judgment exists now in the black node. But we'll get to that in a second. Another optimistic input from yellow was that we could hire less experienced people to enter the support team and work European hours. And we could outsource support to a service provider, which is where proposed solution number 3 was first discussed. So there's our yellow optimistic input. And then we move to green, which is our creative hat, where we apply creative thinking to add to and enhance our original proposed solution. And some questions to help you do that are, what alternative possibilities could exist? Could this be done in a different way? How could I look at this problem from a unique perspective? And how can I think outside the box about this? So let's go to our green answers. So we could hire remote workers in different parts of the world as salaried employees, or we could hire a new team in Europe. And those ideas became the basis for new proposals. Now, once you've gone through this process once in sequence, you can go back through it again. If any new facts are raised, you add them into the white hats information. If anybody's feelings change about the proposal as the proposal is discussed, you would go back into the red section and work through that. And where you will find you're going back and forth a lot is between critical judgments and optimistic input. For example, when we optimistically said we could use the position as an entry-level position for new hires to enter the company via the support team, well, as was pointed out, experienced developers and systems administrators, which we need to hire, which are quite senior, experienced individuals, are very unlikely to accept that they have to work 6 months of unsociable hours as a support person. And even if they did accept that, we would have to be paying them the full systems administrator or programmer salary, whilst we're only getting support team resource for that cost. And where we said we could hire less experienced people to enter the support team and work European hours, well, again, that comes back to the point of that's what we've been trying to do. So as you finish up with one hat, one stage of this process, the information you gather and the ideas you generate can affect the other stages of the process. So please expect to move back and forth between these stages once you've run through them all once. Okay, let me show you proposed solution 2. Open a European-based customer support office. And I will expand all our feedback at once here. Well, all of the feedback here is the same as suggestion 1. Also, we needed to establish what work permit costs were if we moved staff from Canada to Europe. Okay, so let's move into intuitive reactions. Well, this solution seems logical. We control the staff member. the working environment, and the service delivery. This could be an attractive offer to our existing support staff to give them the opportunity to work in Europe for a year or two. And our customers would definitely perceive our opening a European support office as a vast improvement over the current situation. Critical judgments were that cost is again a factor, as European salaries and costs are almost as high as Canada. And then once we actually did the analysis on that, we found out that some savings could be realized. And that's where that extra information came from in the white section. And we thought that perhaps work permits may be expensive and difficult to obtain. Again, when we actually looked at that, that was not the case. When it came to our optimistic input, well, customers will approve. Staff should find it an attractive option. That was a bit of an assumption. That should say staff may find it an attractive option. And it would move the right people to the right time zone. And then we worked through the green creative solutions option. But I'll be honest, we didn't find any new creative revolutionary ways to solve this problem, because the only way we could foresee solving this problem was to put a bum on a seat servicing our European customers during the right time zones. That's why the green section has no feedback in our proposed solutions, but hopefully you'll be able to come up with creative solutions to your issues. And let's look at proposed solution 3, which is to outsource our work to a third party, a company that specializes in IT outsourcing. All of our facts for white, again, are the same as problem 1. We moved into the intuitive reactions. By us not employing the person providing the service quality, that made me worry personally about service quality provision if that person was not answerable to us. And we were worried about the increased cost of outsourcing, because obviously outsourcing companies need to make a profit. Critical judgments were that remote workers would require distance-based training, which we weren't really set up to provide. Service quality is a concern if the employee is not directly answerable to us. And our routine queries are addressed by account managers anyway. Most support team queries are of a highly technical nature and require an in-depth technical understanding of our product, which would lean against outsourcing that to a regular IT help desk. Our optimistic input was that we could provide a knowledge base of information for routine queries. And in that, we addressed one of the black critical judgments, though we didn't address it particularly well. Under red, as we moved back and forth between the nodes, the intuitive reaction was that would costs be increased by this approach? And then when we did the analysis for that to add it to the white stage, we found that whilst outsourcing could be provided cheaper, and did we want to teach a third-party company how we design our products? So those were our proposed solutions. Now, the whole point of this brainstorming process is to get a disciplined meeting environment so that the very vocal, very critical people have to work in this regimented way alongside everybody else, and you get the best feedback, hopefully, from the entire team, as opposed to just 1 or 2 people shouting down everybody else's ideas. There is a lot more to the 6 thinking hats. As I said, this is a simplification. And the reason this is a simplification is because we've already done a lot of the work already by using the other models that you might necessarily do during a 6 thinking hats meeting. So that's why we were able to strip this down and use quite a lightweight version of the tool. If you do work in an environment where there are a considerable number of meetings, and these are very time intensive and sometimes contentious, I would urge you to pick up a copy of Edward de Bono's book, The 6 Thinking Hats. It's a brief read, it's an excellent read, and it's certainly a model that can add value if you use it correctly. Okay, so there's our brainstorming process for our example problem completed. As we worked through the initial solution, other solutions became apparent, and we worked through those. We gathered the information, we gathered our intuitive feedback, we criticized the idea, we came up with responses to those criticisms, and we didn't do too much, I must admit, in looking for creative input, creative ways to solve this problem, because in this particular case, there is only one way to solve the problem, and that's to have a bum on a seat answering the calls during European working hours. So there wasn't too much creativity to find a completely new and revolutionary way to address that problem. Okay, so that's it for the brainstorming example lesson. This is probably the most complex model that we're using in this course. If you have any questions, please put them in the discussion forum below, and I will do my best to answer them. But when you're ready, I want you to meet me in the next lesson where you're going to perform your own brainstorming exercise. As always, thank you very much for your time.